I'm very happy to greet everyone in the virtual living room of Globus Books, an independent bookstore serving San Francisco since 1971. We offer a wide-ranging stock of books on all things Russia and former Soviet Union. We are working with libraries across the states and worldwide, and completing the holdings for Russian publications, and also doing Russophone literature, modern and the past. Our team is well known for its expertise in first edition of Russian and Russophone literature, books on the Russian avant-garde, early imprints, travel, voyage books, and lately we have added our YouTube channel, which is currently hosting this reading, and grateful to have all of you. So visit us at globusbooks.com, and we are excited to host this trilingual reading. We will be reading in English, French, and Spanish. It is a day and a night of poetry, prose, transatlantic discussion from Paris to San Francisco and from north to south. So come join us online for this year's reading of the Bioptic review that Lucy will soon introduce, and we will explore the polar extremes of geography, economics, history, emotion, human experience, and of language itself.
So thank you everyone who's here attending, and yes, here we are all here to celebrate the edition of the Bioptic Review, this year's edition of 2020. And this year's theme was North and South. So I'm just going to give you a little description of the review itself. The Bioptic Review was started out of a vision to create liaisons between insular poetry circles and to bridge ideological divides between writers of the English, French, and Spanish languages, with the hope to circulate ideas between literary spaces that stretch from North America to Central and South America and across the Atlantic Ocean to Europe, most notably to Paris, France, where the majority of the Bioptic Review poets, artists, and writers are situated.
Lucy, gracias por reunir a toda la gente. Voy a presentar la revista en español. Bueno, la edición de este año se trata sobre el norte y el sur. La revista Bioptica nació de una visión de unir círculos de poesía aislados y hacer puentes entre visiones ideológicas entre escritores en las lenguas de inglés, francés y castellano, con la esperanza de hacer circular ideas entre los espacios literarios que se extienden de América del Norte hasta Centroamérica y América del Sur, y a través del Océano Atlántico hasta Europa, principalmente en París, Francia, donde la mayoría de poetas, artistas y escritores viven.
La revue Bioptique est née d'une vision de construire des liens entre des cercles de poésie insulaire et de faire des ponts entre les divisions idéologiques des écrivains anglophones, francophones et hispanophones, avec l'espoir de faire passer des idées entre les espaces littéraires qui vont de l'Amérique du Nord à l'Amérique centrale et à l'Amérique du Sud, et à travers l'océan Atlantique jusqu'en Europe, notamment à Paris, France, où la majorité des poètes, artistes et écrivains de la revue Bioptique vivent.
So Zarina Zabriskie is the author of 3 short story collections: Iron, A Cute Tombstone, Explosion, the novel We, Monsters, and the collaborative book of poetry, Green Lions. Her work has been published in 9 countries. She is a 3-time Pushcart Prize nominee, a recipient of a 2013 Acker Award, and a co-founder of the Arts Resistance. And as you know, she also runs Globus Books, who is hosting this event for us today.
That fish tastes like the bottom of the ocean. I would know. I am a fish woman. My name is Melusine. I am of the ocean. Ocean, ocean, take me back to sleep with pale anemones and starfish, strange creatures with antennas and no face recognition cameras. The tale that I hid in the closet doesn't fit me anymore. It is one size smaller. It wouldn't zip. It doesn't work. Nothing works anymore. Nothing makes sense. Sense is no more. Nothing is sense. There is no good, no bad. Children are grown. Children are gone. Children are selfish. Children are shellfish. There's plastic at the bottom of the ocean. Oceans of plastic. This is the bottom of the bottom. I don't recognize any faces anymore. Where are my cameras? My eyes hurt from seeing high art sold at the kiosks in the streets. Van Gogh didn't lose his mind to become a rug. Jung's scream is a scarf now. What? To hang yourself on? My ears hurt, inflamed from the noise they call music, screeching they call singing, meaningless garbage they call words. Words used to be flowers. They blossomed in the Arctic winter of a no country, but there is no winter anymore, no Arctic. They melted, and the no country is dead. It doesn't exist. Not that I care. I am stuck in the fishnet of my own device. I cannot move a limb. I am a fish with no gills, a bird with no wings, a woman with no womb. My lungs burn, scorched with the smoke from the peat-swamp fires, and free cell is a wild animal fleeing the Amazon blaze. I feel 100,000 blades, 100,000 wounds, glass splinter shards from throwing myself into these windows again and again and again, because the tower is empty. There is no way back. The tower is locked. The children are gone. The fisherman is in the sea fishing for new mermaids. My wings burned to the shoulder blades. Can you see the stubs? The scales are falling off. From the Sahara heat, this world has become. It was 48 degrees centigrade in Paris this summer in June. But the red brick of the no country is swelling. It's turning into the Great China Wall, into Berlin Wall, into Texas Wall, wall upon the wall, upon the wall. I can't look at it anymore. Tatars and Slavs are dancing in the dead steppes, sponsored by the Japanese tobacco factories and Russian bandits. At the Arts Biennale in Venice, Lenin and Leonardo da Vinci become the same. The underground used to be sponsored by the security services. Now the left and the right are the same. It is a red-brown coalition. In one of the pavilions, they crucify truth. Poets give birth to fascism because pathos is the mother of patriotism. Because activism and collective farms march hand in hand over dead bodies. Because crowd is fear. Because crowd is the flock of monkeys fleeing boa constrictors. Because crowd is a scarlet sail dream float in the head of the military parade. Because crowd is the regiment, immortal one, the battalion of zombies drunk on blood and delirious about wars. Because crowd is a monster of many heads, a hydra. But St. Michael's is not flying in. He couldn't afford the airfare. He got scared of the crime in Tenderloin, where poets and lunatics expire in a ditch, but also climb tribunes and the armored locomotive of history, screaming, "Hail! Insert the name of the dictator of your choice, add martyrs, tortures, try dolphins to spy on humans, dig moats, fill them with crocodiles and snake, drink vinegar, eat crocodiles, pump black oil and blood through the glass veins of rivers, give teachers firearms, hand grenades, nuclear bombs, turn schools into re-education centers and concentration camps, harvest organs the way you harvest mollusks, because this is life, isn't it? This is the new spiral of history, isn't it? They say, relax, Melusine. They say, take it easy, Melusine. But Melusine is tired. Melusine has seen it all. Melusine wants to take a bubble bath in a bunker. Doomed to eternity, Melusine wants out. Ocean, ocean, take me back.
David Leo Sirois was born in Edmundston, New Brunswick, Canada, and grew up across the border in Madawaska, Maine. His poems have appeared in the Poetry Village, the Sunday Tribune Online, the Opiate, Those That This, the Bastille, the Bioptic Review, Belleville, the Park Pages, 2 Words for Paris, and Tatiel, which also published his translations of Paul Valéry, Adeline Baldacchino, and pardon my and Deborah Heisler. Together, he has published over 75 pieces, including his work in the Keystone Anthology, Guildford, England, the anthology Vignettes and Postcards from Paris, and in the US, the Opiate Anthology, Becoming Fire, Spiritual Writing from Rising Stories, as well as Silo, Bennington College's literary magazine, Poesy and More. He's currently submitting 2 manuscripts for publication. And here now is the Prélude sonore of David Leo Siwa.
Dream sketched from memory. The sacred water is inside you. It will cleanse you. We wash our hands with coffee grounds and light and pulse still. New water in your coffee and tea temple's constellation of plants stretches toward our air. Out of doors, Canada Road floats under sharp snow, shares forward steps and sideways triple steps with us, dances impromptu swing. Brown, tan, beige buildings lost in hollowed histories unravel limited time stories before the inner witness of this shorter sunspan. Spectator of sleep who records the scenes of dreams to show us when we wake and watch the mind chase its persistent addiction, forgetfulness. Metronomes motion us forward and questions we have to live raw. Where do I come from? Why am I born? Who am I? What on earth am I supposed to be doing? To a soundtrack of sweet machine hum, wise and blind driven cars. Our mantras burn dross off of inner gold till we are left with precious metal nerves, raw honey color with no resistance, no impedance to electric currents in the universe's circuitry. Yes, as the sonnet said, let us not admit impediments to the marriage of true minds. Fluid blue movement, we walk, dance, float over sidewalks alongside finely etched souls in this memorable detail of a gigantic print seen from a seagull's 360-degree free sky sight. 100 footsteps from the St. John River Wollastock's soft flow as she slips into her patched coat of ice flows. Under cross-hatched geometry of the Iron International Bridge that bonds Canada with the States, we share one chocolatine pause before the salted sweetness of our daily à demain, pursued by hour and minute hands. Time takes forever and never resolves. Suspended chords, endless progression. In our timeless space, I whisper, we don't have to talk. We walk slowly, wordlessly, watch crystalline wind and birches, bare limbs wave their inner water, lean over the river that forever murmurs, keep going, keep going, keep going. I remember the wet canvas, floral palette of famous fall hills, soon denuded by blizzard winds. Distant scent, almost absent, burnished gold and scarlet sheets of time-turned leaves pen endless letters with webs of veins. Now is the time tenacious branches urge and encourage us forward. Our dovetailed December fingers warm one another. Our wide indigo vision one witness behind two minds, two pairs of blue pearl eyes, watches astonished by the whole show appearing now at our Globe Theatre's precipitous cusp of winter. At 11:11 p.m., I sketch our silhouettes from memory. We appear here where dark lines and circles spread out upon a pale page, our secret alphabet of waking up. My words, this world, emptiness outlined with pen and ink. What seems to form a poem, one person or two, a universe named for its one turning, frames for the same blank space. This vista, kaleidoscopic panorama, unfoldment of inner light. Beloved bleu, this scene is half dream sketched from memory to murmur in images, a spotlight on past delights. Half spontaneous scribble in a masterclass on figure drawing on the set of a universal play. Once upon an indigo shift into winter night. We are always in transition.
Lucy Rose, the co-host and organizer of this reading, and a poet from Northern California who lives in Paris and writes in English, French, and occasionally Spanish. She studied literature and theory at Paris Sorbonne Cité and the EHESS, and now coordinates the Bioptic Review. She teaches English at the university level and goes to Babel Cafe poetry reading in her free time. She has also participated in the Paris Poetry Brothel, Open Secret, 100,000 Poets for Change, and is the English director of the women's writing and theater group, Les Rejoignez-nous. So my French is not that good, so you will have to pardon my pronunciation.
So today I'm going to read a poem from the Bioptic Review in English, French, and Spanish. On a dream. The drunken world of all its 100 eyes did eye me in the pupil of mirror. But whose second circle of hellish skies did terrify me by their own horror? If only they had retained their heart's reign, my own sorrow could have been made much less. If only they had kept their kissed lips' pain, memory would have remembered kindness. But after the whirlwind has long been past, the flaws in their lessons are still engraved, for the gust of hail that pelted cast scars onto the mind's retina, bereaved. They should work on themselves, that thing is sure. The doctors are sick, and there is no cure. Et maintenant, je vais lire le même poème en français. Donc, c'est sur un rêve. Le monde, c'est centaines d'yeux, m'a regardé dans la pupille de son miroir. Mais à qui est ce deuxième cercle vicieux, des cieux d'enfer qui m'horrifient par leur horreur? Si juste ils ont retenu la pluie de leur cœur, ma propre souffrance aurait pu être plus mince. Si juste ils ont gardé leurs bisous de douleur, la mémoire aurait pu connaître la bienveillance. Mais après la tempête qui est passée depuis, les fautes dans leurs leçons sont toujours bien gravées. Car le coup de vent des grêles qui bombardait a laissé des cicatrices sur les yeux de l'esprit. Ils doivent faire un travail sur eux-mêmes, ça est sûr. Les docteurs sont malades sans qu'il y ait une cure. Et maintenant, je vais lire le même poème en espagnol, même si mon espagnol n'est pas parfait. J'essaie d'écrire un peu en espagnol aussi. Donc, sobre el mundo del dragón de todos sus 100 ojos. Me miró en la pupila del espejo de cielos infernales. Me aterrizó con su propio horror. Si tan solo hubieran retenido la lluvia de sus corazones, mi propia pena podría haberse hecho mucho menos. Si tan solo hubieran mantenido el dolor de sus labios besados, la memoria habría recordado a la amabilidad. Pero bien después de que el torbellino haya pasado, los defectos en sus lesiones aún están grabados, pues la ráfaga de granizo que arrojó escribió cicatrices en la retina de la mente afligida. Deberían trabajar en sí mismos, eso es seguro. Los doctores están enfermos y no hay cura.
Youssef Aloui is a Moroccan Colombian American. His family and heritage are an endless source of inspiration for his varied, dark, spiritual, and carnal writings. He has an MFA in poetics from New College of California, San Francisco. His work has appeared in Exquisite Corpse, Big Bridge, 580 Split, Ducey Press, Rivette Journal, Paris Lit Up, The Opiate, and it was nominated for a Pushcart Prize at Fool of Crow.
This is death swallowed up in light. High above the sand, I used to feel ravens squeeze the air around me. It wasn't long before I had dreams of flight. It was profoundly creative, progenitive, to slide my body through billows of musk, fueled by the sun, cooking it all on my back, thick with salve, beak spread to receive it, my slight form hurled over the rocks, our babies scattered before us, 1,000 dusty silhouette forms soaking up light, bouncing north to meet the great crescent, mountain, forest, plume, running, deer, rabbit, fox. You can't outrun this. It comes on faster. You make me cry when you do escape on red cakes of clay, lightning boned, dark fur flight, fire valley of the south, deep in midday sun, stone Tara princess, clear sword mirror, burns up the dead, smashed, and all the lies, but leaving a midnight sky, one single star up north, you pine cone child, sky-born fruit, corpseless loft, flattened shield. I miss you now, Let us talk in our sleep, finishing oceans, turning always, starting over, the yellow cliffs of death, swallowed up in light.
Our next poet is Louisa Valentin, who was born in Chile in 1984. And she is a journalist and a writer. Her literary work has been included in various anthologies along with other poets. She has published the poetry books While Men Sleep, which had an honorable mention at the Gabriela Mistral Literary Games in 2018. And Mucho Porn, co-written with the poet Thomas Reyes. She has worked as an editor for different publications and has dabbled in dramaturgy with the Airplane Mode, a micro theater piece presented in 2020 under the direction of Belen Zambeat. She is currently a member of the Trans-Andean poetry group Colectivo Ambruna, and is in the final phase of correcting her first novel, Vagabunda, which will be published in November 2020. So I assume it's already published by editorial Noctambula. So Louisa Valentin.
This is a poem about police brutality. It was written in December 2019 when Chilean police was still blinding protesters and hurting and killing people for demanding social justice. It's called Silence. What did you do before with all the words that have my veins sewn home? A lead silence in my ribs has been installed as a cluster bomb. That's what stories we're talking about, bombs. We wanted them to be past written on a wall this morning, but it wasn't true. Those stories were still burning when we wanted to write as if looking at them over the shoulder. Men still fell, women were still drowning. I'm here, I was, my chest boiled with silence, just before I understood that there would be no scar. I am, and I talk about life as if it no longer exists. And I tell you, it was a time, that time in which life did not exist and died of excess endings. Silence became unpredictable, burned at the beginning of the lungs. Now we know how it feels to get intoxicated from slogans. I'm not satisfied, I thought. It would be better to make with words plasma, because in plasma there are so many possibilities. We could maybe decree the end of excess endings. The age of endings is over. In order to conceive, just conceive a horizon at your fingertips, even if it comes crooked. Naivety seemed insolent to me. The fertility promise anxious. We are stiff, someone would say, but before an end, it is necessary to be born. Today we are above heroism, someone would say. How difficult it is to assume that a meaning existed not so long ago, and that permanent loss of sense is one end after another, and everything else in the middle part between finishing something and finishing something else. How difficult it is to assume that there's no way out from the end, as well as the excesses. I keep a special place for the chosen words: glass, impulse, Thanos, ages of years. All the concepts that name the extinction of life. All synonyms that name the precipice, that place with sharp hands where they ended up, 400 eyes and counting. I keep a special place for those new ways of looking. I leave them there, where concepts don't reach and words fall asleep. New ways of looking at the sky, for example, with the voice of someone with round hands describing, not even with vowels, but with whistles, shades of blue and partial cloud. New ways of looking at your face, for example, a poem every night to announce dangerous moths and distinguish red from pink on your tongue. Someone learns to look from below. That means your body appears huge before the eyes of those who still have eyes. Impossible not to see heroes from below, silhouettes like monuments who have stood over the silence of 5 o'clock, bringing everything that is born without warning, accompanied by the barking of a dog, always a dog, a black dog, and with your fist raised, you tell me all those pretty things that I want to hear. That's the end of a book, I think. That is the end, someone would say. But when we take off our shoes, the pavement is still burning, and our skin, we still want to rip it off with the fingernails. Never mind, someone would say. In the distance, the rumor lets itself grow, and your mouth rehearses movements that you had not forgotten. Barefoot on red pavement, leaving the skin in the street, we break the silence. Volatile alphabet, you say to me, let the word go and speak for us, taking the form of the rational. I say to you, for reason or for passion, and that's all I managed to give birth to, a vocal bone that's going to fall nowhere, a lot of loose letters to build death, and from death, life, which has always been the way of understanding the logic of existence.
Florian Germain écrit des acrostiches. Elle est passionnée des rimes. Non, pardon.
Oui, de rime. Oui.
Si, ok.
Oui.
Bon, Florian. Oui, c'est nous. Oui, voilà, ok. Ces poèmes prennent plus souvent la forme de sonnets. Dans ce cadre rigide, elle tente de faire vibrer les mots. Pour le printemps des poètes, elle a organisé l'événement Passeur des poèmes avec des scolaires de la ville de Sèvres. La transmission orale des poèmes aux passants a permis de créer un lien d'écoute et de surprise dans les rues de la ville. Elle partage également ses textes en participant à des scènes ouvertes de slam au Babel Café et au Charlie. Elle a publié dans la page blanche en 2020, numéro 54, et le Bioptic Review en 2019. Hi, Flo.
Bonjour.
Bienvenue.
Bonsoir.
Bonjour.
Ce sera du français avec moi. Alors, 2 courts textes, puisque je vois que l'heure tourne. Donc, le premier, c'est « Elle perd le nord » et le deuxième, c'est « Ce nord pense le sud ». Donc, en acrostiche, acrostic in English. Alors, c'est parti en français. Elle perd le nord. Exténuée par la fatigue, son corps en transe la malmène. Elle perd toute cohérence et logique. Les soubresauts féroces transgressent son léthargique état. Aucun contrôle, elle ne mène plus la danse. Ployée malgré elle, sous le poids de son intense errance, elle ne peut qu'observer cet hypnotique revers. Elle ferme les yeux, tentant une tactique désespérée. Rien n'y fait. Tout devient souffrance. La calmie reviendra, elle la reconnaîtra. En attendant, elle subit cet atroce fatras. Noyée, sa conscience se perd dans l'incohérence. Oubliée, le nord, le sud et l'être sensé. Ressaisir finalement une idée, une pensée, des bribes d'elle-même et enfin, une prégnante présence. Voilà le premier. Et le deuxième. Ce nord pense le sud. Comment penser l'existence sans des repères? Essayant d'apprivoiser l'univers, nuage de particules et de poussière, où l'homme se cherche pour s'extraire de l'enfer, résister à l'éphémère et dompter des éléments qu'il ne peut faire plier. Prétentieux, il croit sa supériorité et invente les sciences pour s'en conforter. N'eût-il pas suffi que l'humanité s'allie pour au moins croire son entité? Espèce non satisfaite, voilà les clans. Séparés pour mieux régner, des clichés ubuesques. Et le Nord se croit doté du pouvoir de penser le Sud mouvant.
And we are now welcoming Constant Laval Williams, who has performed with Globus Books before. Constant is a Los Angeles-born poet and former resident of Paris, France, where his writing first came of age. He studied creative writing at the University of Southern California, where he received the Bourget-Bordeaux Poetry Award. His poetry has appeared or is forthcoming in Hotel America, the American Journal of Poetry, December Magazine, Paris Lit Up, and other publications. Please welcome Constant.
Hi. This poem I'm going to read that's in the journal is dedicated to my friend Kat Conlon and is in response to a song he wrote. It's called The Moon and the Sea. Back in Paris, you shatter the kitchen into a throne. Back in Paris, he threatens to take flight like a fledgling from your apartment window, and I sit on his chest, promising to make my fists sing like northern thunder. And maybe we were all dangerous men, and maybe our boyhood never would have lasted anywhere. The night pursuant sends an accident to our friend, turns our bodies black and blue, but all the things you've done to you are all right. In Marseille, they rob us like I say they will. In the stolen camera, us basking on white sea cliffs, us flirting with flight. You say they cannot take the cameras inside of our heads, but when our film is developed, all the subjects will be dead. The night pursuant sends an accident to our friend, and next to the moonlit port, next to the crumbling yellow stone of an ancient fort, next to the beautiful Moorish basilica full of thieves, I see his eyes reflected in the knife that is pulled from baggy sweatpants, then kissed against our throats. And I brace myself for his embrace. I brace myself for the joy of being there, where I'll be him and he'll be me. I'll be the moon and he'll be the sea.
Now, please help me to welcome Cesar Ej Sanchez, who was born in Trujillo, Peru in 1989. He grew up in the northern Peruvian coastline, then moving to Lima from 1999 until 2002, the year in which he left to New York in search of new horizons, along with his family. There, he became engaged with the literary community Poetas en Nueva York from 2012 to 2015. His poetic collections include Viracocha Borealis, 2012, and Grisal, 2015, both in Spanish. Upon his arrival to Europe in 2016, he studied Hispanic American literature at the University of Barcelona. He is now settled in Paris, where he writes in English and is currently at work on an autographical novel. Please welcome Cesar.
So I'm going to read one of the poems that is on the review. It's called Below the Script. Decibels resound, complexion loudly trembles. Sorely, the response comes in suspense. I had forgotten there was no signal. Was there any reason for rebellion in the race? Our talk was supposed to take place like an encounter of surrealist tinge. To be the last man standing when I post my nickname on the wall, saying minds revolve around the language above the law, like a choice to explore diagonally with a brew alone, explicit as they wanted us, devoid of rush and intact in space. Thank you. And right after this, maybe some of you have seen the illustration I did of a golden dolphin in the review. It's somewhere in the middle, I think. And so this is a poem in Spanish I wrote about that creature. Se ha puesto el futuro en la bandeja de plata. Los próceres de América se unen a tu lucha, yo incluido, junto al mismo que lanza un alarido en trayectoria del zumbido de una abeja ambivalente, hacia el éxtasis que alberga la memoria del abrazo de un delfín dorado sonriente. Bien pudo haber saltado la pluma del bolsillo para convertir a ese conserje en el aedo que cantase la melodía de los siglos. Del bello sur, sus brisnas resbalan al paisaje iridiscente del olvido. Ayer fulgió el hallazgo en el corazón, cuando entramos al recinto de la madre, y mi estado mental viajó a la costa oeste. Por vos me fui templando en retroceso. Esa mirada se estampó en mi memoria, hasta estallar en decibeles, para dejarme elevado y sumergido, simultáneo, a modo de un ícaro moderno rozando el doble mediodía.
Moro Maldito is a poet and artist from Chile who currently lives in Paris, where he puts his delirium on paper.
Sur-norte. Soy surecléptico y sísmico. Vine sin venir, querer, viniendo, viendo, queriendo, amando, creadora, crear. Llegué con lo puesto y dispuesto. Llegué con voz de tormentos y manifiestos. 14 horas de vuelo, expatriada y consecuente, maldita lucidez, otra vez. Fluir entre bares malditos y duchas públicas, respirar si la ciudad te ama, ser parte de todas y todos, abrir los oídos y volvemos a partir de donde volvemos. Soy norte eclipsado de estrellas caídas, inherente, asumida arrogancia de espejos rotos, ecuaciones cardinales, asimétricas, descargas eléctricas, mazos de dioses y accidentadas borracheras de Bohemia. Aquí y en el abismo que el demonio perdió su abrigo, las calles se repiten, escenarios bulliciosos, los amores se besan y se van, sin rebotes. Viajar a los orificios del cielo, cambiar de estación norte-verano, atravesar océanos, sur-invierno, mientras voy literalmente desarmado. Es nuestro reencuentro, espíritus abiertos, fantasmas muertos, caen truenos y titanes, hermanos, hermanastras y especies en armas y extinción, conjugar las palabras y los hechos. Tiempos extraños y corruptos evolucionan, ya bajo toda concepción y cosechas. Tránsfuga, religiones viscerales, tiempos de mazos, tormentos oscuros y relaciones truchas. Tiempos de encontrarse más allá del viaje místico, autocomplaciente e individualista, narcisa, encontrarse de frente con la historia que se escribe con la mano, empoderada de esa conciencia colectiva, consciente, y que se desea borrar con ignorancia, transmutarse en eso que llamamos amor, elocuencia, deseos, sueños, anhelos, ese amor de creer 1001 vez más silente, arraigado a tus raíces, tu boca húmeda y caliente. Merci beaucoup, thank you very much, y muchas gracias sobre todo a los creadores de a la creadora de esta revista, gran editora, y gracias también a esa poesía hispanoparlante que siempre es tan poderosa y que es necesario mantener. Agradezco estar con gente como vosotros y dentro de toda esa energía.
Gonzalo Adolfo is a Bolivian American writer and author of the novel No Rush for Gold and the mixed poetry and prose volume Gone to War. The pieces published in this review are excerpted from I Walk the Earth, a poetic travelogue of the Camino del Norte, and Give Me a Home, a poetic travelogue of several journeys across North America and Europe. His international publication credits include Presence, Somos en Escrito, and the Bioptic Review. He lives in Berkeley, California, right close to us, to Globus, where he pursues his profession as a sommelier and his passion for poetry.
This first piece I'm going to read is a poem sequence I wrote while visiting my parents in my hometown. It's made up of 6 short haiku-like poems. Seasons in Illinois. In winter, a splatter of branches tangled in the window, naked trees in winter. Heavy snowfall through the evergreens. The angels share berries and ice-bound earth. In spring, prowling in a shadow in dead grass, a brown squirrel digs up lunch. Breakfast on a terrace with a view, munching squirrel on a branch. Perched on a massive tree trunk, a sun-loving squirrel is a statue. In autumn, sneaks through the autumn unraked lawn, a yellow cat in yellow leaves. This next piece is from my current work in progress, and it's a travelogue, as was mentioned, and it incorporates poems into the narrative, and this is the first chapter of the book. On the road to Sioux Falls, the pearl was handed to me. A day is a journey in itself, its hours often spent in dreams of ventures into richer pastures. Far be it if the grass is greener, if the grass is purple, I want to see it. True travel is no vacation, and an adventure is no less than an opportunity for accelerated growth. When given the keys, balk not, grab them and go. It was on a day in mid-spring that I set off on a road trip I had never imagined. Delivering a red convertible to its new home in Montana, I would be driving from just east of the Mississippi River in Illinois to just south of the Canadian border and ending with an eye shot of Glacier National Park. My journals are filled with sketches of dream voyages mapped out all over the world, but until now, the northern mountain states had been overlooked. I remember once when looking at an old train route map and seeing that national park on it with the magical name of Glacier. Now soon, I would be on its doorstep. Travels are better prepared for than planned for. But first, it was key to check my eagerness and delay my departure for as long as I could. Winters in the mountains linger into the first days of summer, and the roads would not be fully open for some time yet. So against the grain, I sat patiently for a few weeks until with a wave of warm weather in the first days of May, I saw land unroll for me like a red carpet, and I was on the road. The river was high in record-breaking flooding as I crossed into Iowa. In previous weeks, I had watched the floodwaters rise from a riverside cafe in Moline. Pelicans and geese and plastic garbage that looked like ducks drifting by the window until the river inevitably reached the door and the shop had to close until it receded. From high up on the bridge, low flying birds grazed their bellies against the reflections in the water on their way to perching on treetops that looked like bushes floating in the river. A cataclysmic event is strangely peaceful in its aftermath. For the first hours behind the wheel dragged. The straight shot across Iowa, monotonous to a sin, toys with one's spirit, and not 3 hours into it, Montana seemed an unreachable goal. In Des Moines, I stopped for a meal and after the break drove on and into South Dakota, the hours passing more swiftly. A road routine was falling into place and the car was increasingly becoming a haven. These 4 wheels would be the closest thing to a home and a companion for the next group of days. Then it was Sioux Falls before sundown, where I spent the first night and visited its namesake falls, lying in an urban park, complete with the ruins of an old mill and walking paths and a footbridge over it. Rewarding to the eye, if not the nose. Narrow falls crashes over red quartzite rocks. Breathe deep, the stinky river.
Ouais.
Ayette Benjedou est née en 1979 à Strasbourg où elle obtient une maîtrise de lettres. Elle consacre les loisirs à aller au cinéma, au concert, aller danser, voyager et flâner à Paris. L'écriture lui permet de ne pas se mentir. Elle travaille actuellement sur la chaîne YouTube Vas-y raconte, racontant des faits divers et des fictions étranges. Voilà. Et bienvenue. Salut.
I'm gonna read you, je vais vous lire mon texte de la revue Bioptic Review qui s'intitule Flirt avec le réel. C'est une petite histoire, c'est un peu humoristique. J'espère que vous rirez un petit peu de là où vous êtes. Couvre-feu ou pas couvre-feu, peu importe. Quand arrive l'heure de se coucher, je perds le nord, tout se mélange dans ma tête. En une fraction de seconde, j'atterris directement dans mon sud l'imaginaire. Dans cet espace-temps, tout semble permis. Lui seul fixe les limites. Le nord ordonne mes journées, le sud fait comme il peut en soirée. Mais le rêve n'entre pas dans les cases des règles sociales. Il court sauvage, aventurier. Je ne sais comment vivre avec lui, le dompter, le polir. Allongé sur mon lit, le sommeil tarde, les lumières éteintes, mes rideaux restent ouverts. Concentré sur la lune, mon esprit s'évade. Il devient libre de mêler les lieux et les époques, les couches intemporelles interdites, irréelles que seul le jour viendra délivrer. À présent, c'est le meilleur moment de la nuit, ce juste milieu qui m'assure qu'on ne me dérangera plus dans mes folles errances. Mais dehors, la voix du nord gronde. Couche-toi plus tôt, prépare tes vêtements, fais ton repassage. Et au contraire, dans ma tête, le songe me susurre comme un amant italien. Rêve, rêve, mon ami, continue de rêver. Mais où tout cela me mène, je vis mon idylle avec mon imagination depuis trop longtemps. J'y ai pris goût. Pourquoi mettrais-je le cap au nord? Nous flirtons ensemble des heures et des heures dans les plus beaux paysages méridionaux. L'horloge me rappelle à la raison. Il est 2 heures du matin, à 6 heures, je me lève pour aller travailler. C'est la triste réalité. Le Sud fait comme il peut. Il invente sa loi, espérant que le Nord y cède. Je finis par m'écrouler, fatiguée de repousser les hémisphères dans mon cerveau. 6 heures, je frappe le réveil. 6h30, je le jette à terre. Je bois mon café serré. Je crie à tous les dieux que je veux continuer de somnoler. Aucune réponse. Je suis à la fois épuisée et excitée par la caféine. Je lutte encore quelques secondes. Ainsi, j'imagine plusieurs scénarios. Me faire porter malade, démissionner. Agacée, je finis par vomir le café dans le lavabo. La tache brunâtre sur mon chemisier blanc me fait horreur. Assume, assume tes rêves, braille le Nord. Assume. Je l'invective, appelant le Sud à la rescousse, et cette fois-ci, je n'entends plus la voix du songe restée dans le lit. À 7 heures du matin, je n'ai plus le choix que de me dépêtrer de mon sommeil. Déboussolée, je m'habille et m'engouffre dans le métro. Et finalement, chaque matin, je fais le même constat à mon arrivée au bureau. Ma collègue pimpante et maquillée porte sa chemise fraîchement repassée. Et moi, j'ai l'air de débarquer de mes vacances ensoleillées avec ma joue encore froissée et mon jean délavé.
So the next speaker I'm very pleased to introduce. We met in Paris, and Mo Seeger is wonderful. He is a poet and jazz and blues vocalist who sings his poems on stages in Paris, New York, and elsewhere, and has recorded 2 jazz poetry CDs. Seeger founded and hosts Angora Poets Paris series. He has published 2 collections with Onslaught Press, Oxford, UK. I Wanna Make Jazz With You, December 2016, and We Want Everything, April 2016. More Poems, self-published, 2014. Other poetry collections are issued from the French Ministry of Culture, Dream Bearers, 1990, One World Cairo Press in Arabic translation, 2004. We Want Everything in French, We Want Everything in French translation, and Le Thème des Services, Paris, 1994. Perhaps La Maison de la Poésie, Grenoble, France, 2006. Fisherman and Pool Sharks Baskin Editions, London, 1992. Additionally, Seeger won a Golden Quill Award, USA, for investigative journalism, 1989, and received an International Human Rights Award from the ZEP Foundation in 1990. Please help me to welcome Mo.
Okay, I will read 3 poems, and the first poem talks directly, cardinally, from north to south. It's called November, Western Pennsylvania. When the Great Lake recedes into itself, gels to frigid mass, her elements condense, ice, inertia, by crystalline spearheads launched from the throat of Arctic, they scour the loping white caps of Erie to lance the halls of nomad steamers. When polar furies gallop the glazed plain, how their venomous gale, and flocks flee with locust horde, molt snared in stiff-barred pines, while great schools of drought solipsists submerge in liquid marble solitudes, sirens rise from cavernous chambers, from aqua black pits in the womb so deep in her. 100 miles due south, a lapse in time descends upon the land, and unnoticed by city and industry town, river crawling through valley, stream treading mud banks, pond convoluting, spiral, motionless. Squirrel, rabbit, muting gray, deer herd thins, and brittle leaves snap like match heads, movement measured in mortal ticks. All the dogs are pensive, insatiable shadow, a glove upon all. Within my corrugated urban fabric maze, a speck of yard, my countryside, dormant patch of wind-scathed crest, suspended slumber, limbo, lull. Between trumpet blast of autumn shock and fluted shrill of winter, soulful pitch of cello chords, when poplar bows the breeze. Each raw note, one raw nerve, unleash nature, naked self, tree of bone, rock of muscle, hills of twisted spine. The second poem is dedicated. I wrote this poem for the 100,000 Poets for Change Festival in Agadir, Morocco, University Ibn Zur. And it was selected as the international poem or international poet of that event. And it is translated into Arabic. And sadly, I cannot read it to you and give you any justice whatsoever. So I will read the original version. And since I spend my time between Pittsburgh and New York, this is north, south, and east, west. Open door. Come in. My door is open. My window clear. Be you friend or stranger. Be foe of ignorance and dangerous myth. My table round, a circle of friends. Now you, stranger. Enemies breaking bread, if we must. I'll pour Italian espresso, and you bring baklava from Beirut, and we will discuss the differences between olives, big and small, green and black. Now let us chew on the options. You be the Muslim, and I'll be the Jew, and I'll poem a phrase, and you sing a song, and we shall dance in the open light for all the world to know that we can. There comes a moment suspended. I find you on a floating bridge in twilight. I think they say serendipity. I shall follow you to your city, to your home. I carry flowers, a curious matter, a wish to know, a need to be. Your tastes, the aromas of your kitchen, the chatter of children, the photos you hang, faces of those you carry deep in your heart. And I tell you stories, and you tell yours. Both of us discharging the shit in our lives in a world gone mad with itself, spilling laughter and pain. With the dawn, we find ourselves alone in the still ambiance, a solitude shared where men might cry. When I take my leave of you, I will carry your voice, your soft eyes, affixed in my stare, my breath in hope, that moment of wordless silence, discovery, union. It was the grace of birdsong, wind chime, morning star, the world about in peace. I will carry your city in the map of my memory, carry your voice in my conversation on the bus. I will carry your smile as a work of fine art, and we shall both be changed for the rest of time. And from our graves, we shall rise to the call of battle, and we shall rush on the wind and fly on the winds and arrive at the scene of blood heat battle. Angels of deliverance. And summon our descendants, offspring and kin, to lay down their fear and pick up the torch. The light is the way we had trod to the crossroad of fulfillment, complete, calling all the children home. This is the piece that got published in the Ministry of Culture and had something to do with me coming to France because the government called American distributors and told them it would be unwise for them to put it on their bookshelves. It was very sensitive in those days. So here it goes. And Rio Escondido, or Hidden River. A rusted bow, this aged plow, this people's boat, churns a warm froth beneath the hull. Escondido, streaming slow and thick, a tropical soup. So torrid, on deck, the banana peels itself. Skin of my face, a leather sweat. Eyes bulge through tanned mask. See the simple fish dart and flee, invading piranhas, Miami hatched. Tears for the massacre below. Tell me, what do you read in Washington? At dawn, morning in Bluefields, the Creole woman ranted, raved, she gone mad, as he would be emperor, and her eyes fixed on mine. She said, my man is gone, cut like Cain, hail of metal. He called my name, Te amo, Nika. She moaned, the earth quaked. She wailed, the palms shook. Her grief-worn scene spread like a gaping hole. Viscera, oozing pain, a foreign policy, a voodoo on this land. And she set a parted, wandering Jew, laced with marjoram, at my feet. And she danced, her dark black locomotion, an herbal cure for the poisonous gringo garden. Nurture and live, she laughed. Now, how do I explain such things? How it goes here? Bittersweet. Volcano Masaya was made a carnivore. Somoza fed its children and their poet, and spitting sulfur ash on their bones. Their words of defiance descend on the rain, flooding the fields, hemorrhaging the furrows. Germinations chant, we rise whole again among you. Hey, you must come here to listen, share this belief I cannot convey. Piercing sun splinters flesh. River mud cakes our thoughts, baked brown, each breathing oven crammed from port to stern. I think of our sun above the hills, our river Allegheny rushing below the house. You in a morning bed. I brought you red and white carnations in a simple bottle filled with clean water. It was May Day, my love. Great rivers now divide us. We sweat in separate ways. Secretly, I name a flower for you. Pink lantana, red sawanyoke, burst in floral cannon. From swollen banks, jump thicket green, la contra, nest for ambush. Squirming parasitic larvae. We check our fear, blind truth before maniacs. My song is De Colores and an Irish lullaby. You know, I have seen the Southern Cross, sparkling sprawl above the rest of hills of Nicaribe, ascending Snake Trail canopied on palm bamboo. I navigated clear, black night, sauntering along gravitational pull of calypso beat, drummed to the maypole of Mayo Ya, abandoned and danced till shy blue light crept from eastern edge of sky. I made space for you in the crowd. How silly of me. It is amidst caramel and cocoa faces, my pale palms wipe away, push back salt-soaked brows. I close my eyes, surrendering to your image. Face within my face blushes pink. So many pictures I could share with you. I would lend you my eyes, ears, my nose, give you the taste on my tongue, odors and aroma of carnage and birth, cover you in teeming flesh sensations. As monkeys chatter, parrots con, blackbirds shining blue, glide on humid airways, guitars strum the conga beats, infants pass, breast to best, suckling quickens, two concussions, falling rockets nearby threaten, someone dies, someone born, a stanza added, will Congress ever listen? And I declare to you, as sure as Hemingway loved the Andalusian woman, square-shouldered in a simple apron, as sure as Sandinismo fights for dear life, sure as this long night drapes the ancient river, on its spine this fragile vessel rests. I will remember today pink and red, caramel and cocoa on melodious strings and resonating rhythms. And I will remember you, my love, at home among the swaying Somex in our backyard, as we sang and danced so gracefully, making love to De Colores, parting to an Irish lullaby, our dream of sailing this far horizon to this determined little nation where freedom is honey and justice is bread, and always best when supped together.
Alice Cazel, lectrice de poésie à l'adolescence jusqu'à son étude à l'université, elle a écrit tout toutes ces années durant, et davantage depuis l'année 2014, avant de découvrir le slam ou poésie contemporaine. Elle avait arrêté ses études de lettres modernes en 2003, considérant alors que l'analyse des textes porterait préjudice à leur auteur, dont interpréter parfois ou peut-être bien les œuvres des travers, comme elle ne se destinait pas au métier d'enseignante, elle avait choisi une autre voie livresque. À ce jour, elle est AESH, accompagnant des élèves en situation de handicap, dans un collège parisien, et en parallèle joue avec les mots. Bienvenue, Alice Cazel.
Territoire terroriste. Différence entre les terreurs qu'on vit sur Terre. Par erreur, il existe des pistes sur le sens, non des mots mais des morts. Alors, la guerre d'animaux sociaux, chasseurs, de passe-passe ne se passe par la porte, la frontière faite étrangère, sans geste de douceur. Plutôt sans cœur, pour plaire, contre l'autre, se battre, pas de peste, mais sans reste, tuer les miroirs. De familier en Proust, auteur de mort, odeur du risque empire, haine à contre-cœur. D'Orient à Brest, le levant à tort, et crever aux morts. Attendre au port et amarrer des ancres, pire que les morts. D'Occident en l'heure, assassiner Eros, Caliste ou Pénélope en test, attendre, court, l'estampe qui sauve de belles ou conteste le lait du tort que se fait l'homme, or qui n'entend, sourd, la femme qui peste, du sud au nord. Amor.
Et Caroline Adler-Micot est une auteure parisienne. Elle écrit des contes qu'elle interprète parfois et des poèmes qu'elle dit souvent lors des slams de poésie. Elle a participé en tant que conteuse à Voisard, un propos artistique pluridisciplinaire dénonçant l'utilisation des violences sexuelles comme arme de guerre en République démocratique du Congo et ailleurs, organisé par l'association Voix alternatives au studio L'Ermitage le 25 novembre 2012. Elle participe à des slams de poésie depuis 2013 et a concouru au Grand Slam national, festival de poésie organisé chaque année dans le quartier de Belleville par la Fédération française de slam poésie en 2014, 15 et 16 dans les équipes de Paris Culture Rapide, Clermont-Ferrand et Paris Taillebourg. Voilà, bienvenue Caroline Adler.
Esos erodus y papas. C'est une dédicace, c'est dédicacé à Ghislain et Xavier, deux amis qui savent de quoi je parle. Non, je ne sais pas. On ne dit pas « je crois que quelqu'un est mort ». Retourner en arrière, hier, demi-tour, avant de rallumer le portable. Sa voix en boucle sur le répondeur, une farce macabre. Dire, ancrer sa mort dans le réel. Nous, naviguons à vue, ombre perdue sur le quai. Monter à la raison, donner le change à la maison. No sé dónde caí, o sea en el metro, relleno de gente, tu boca frente a mí, el silencio en la mía. Ne pas trouver les mots, ou les sentir submergés, rattrapés par les larmes, défragmentés par des bulles de passé. Subir en el autobús, una ventana hasta afuera, regresar mañana, otro día. Sin tu mano en la mía este día, un banco me hubiera acogida. reanimada en tu sofá. No sé hasta cuándo, otra noche, otro día, revenir, passer chaque soir, telle une fourmi au même endroit. Saltar encima del kilómetro cero, una noche de verano. Regresar descansando contigo. Survivre, suivre. Un chemin boueux à l'aube, douché de frais, mini grenouilles. Olvidar la pena o ensayar el arco iris emocional, sombrero oscuro. Entre Roquefort y Münster, los zapatos del tío abajo. Tejado de iglesia de noche, el clac, clac, clac de las cigüeñas.
Jackie Bullard was born and raised in Santa Cruz, California. She never learned her family's language, Tagalog, but she fell in love with the Spanish language during her time in Barcelona as an English teacher. Her current work in progress is a novel about Barcelona. She plays stay-at-home these days, squeezing in her writing during quiet moments when her 2-year-old daughter sleeps or plays with her toys. She also writes blog posts for Kidding Around Yoga and her own weekly newsletter, Yoga Mama. Let's welcome Jackie.
My poem that I submitted last year is called Migration. Rays of March sunlight, yellow and bright, filter through bare branches to bring a softness not felt or seen since early October. The memory of your smile, slow and bright, buried in the sands of my nostalgia, a softness forever cradled in the moment you brushed my cheek with your palm. Your hands, 2 birds rifling through the nest of my hair, fluttering south to my hips. Your lips meeting mine like a soft tide on the beach of my soul, back and forth, raking the sands of my nostalgia. My knees buckling further south, warmth infusing my legs as they melt in the rays of March sunlight, yellow and bright. Our eyes in the dark polar bounds behind closed eyelids, distant from the world around this moment, all hands, lips, warmth, feeling. Eternity melting under a teasing spring sun, just warm enough to move the pulse, but cool enough to solidify this memory in time.
Julia Rivero Ojeda, I hope I pronounced the name right, and Julio was born in Uruguay in 1989, and he's a poet and performer, founder member of Sin Licencia Editorial, a new way to share poetry with books and audiovisual arts. He wrote Discusión Asa and Hotel Oral poetry, and Joel Dunn, a novel. He currently lives between Paris and Buenos Aires. Let's welcome Julio.
Je vais lire un poème qui s'appelle De Marruecos. Je vais lire en espagnol. Las paredes de la Rue du Maroc son el lugar perfecto para la espera, de la épica, de la carrera, de los sabrosos enemigos del éxito, de los cuervos sangrantes, de las anomalías sin cabeza, de los karaokes de Flandes, de los bares llenos, de los dormitorios populares, de los ejércitos de heno y los cafés antes del ejercicio, ese que nos entrena en el arte de sobrevivir. Las paredes de la Rue du Maroc desembocan, como el Gran Cañón, en avenidas toscas donde las actitudes cejan los ojos y extienden la mano. Supermercados y cuentos de tambor. La Rue du Maroc nace en Japón, pero eso no es verdad. Desde la Rue du Maroc puedes ver el Blues du Nord colgado de un cartel azul sobre la puerta clausurada y olvidarla paso a paso, puente a puente, sin ríos en la panza, solo trenes. Desde la Rue du Maroc se ven las gentes montadas en todoterreno a 10 metros del suelo, entre Stalingrado y La Chapelle. Los sacos abandonados y la falta de higiene, los domingos esquineros y los soles en las sienes, la lluvia mojando las camas de los que allí duermen, y los continuaré durmiendo. La Rue du Maroc se me ha pegado al cerebro, como una falta, como una mancha de belleza, como una moraleja, y su polvo violeta volará conmigo, consuelas. This poem, it's a Uruguayan writer called Julian Verso, who died in the 90s, and it's a poem I like it a lot. El asesino despertó al amanecer, se puso las botas y caminó por el pasillo. Hizo una visita a su hermana. Ella dormía como una flor llena de fiebre, exonerada de los espectros del sueño en el aceite de dormir, y tembló, solo también. El asesino era feliz según la gente de bien, animado las más de las veces por un trueno de flores negras en la boca del estómago. El asesino harto allá terció una conversación metafísica. Ido sabiendo, señores, que la lluvia no tiene cáscara. El asesino era admirado por la policía. Su coartada era florida, muy clara y razonable. En su mercancía siempre había una bala inocente, como una clavija fuera de lugar. Su rostro no brillaba al incremento de comunes emociones, siempre ponía el culo en el sillón correcto, jamás besaba para retirarse. El asesino sabía que toda basura aspira a ser humo serio y convocado. El asesino tenía manera delicada de los marineros que siempre pensaron que eran homosexuales. El asesino, entonando con Bourbon, condescendió a contarnos de su hijo, tumbados en el pasto. Explicó que las nubes son barro que sueña y apresuró a sellar mis labios para preocupar la calandria y el zumbido de las umbelas en la bañera, y solucionó fácil mi estupor. Más caramelos, papito. El asesino no conocía declives dóciles, subía y bajaba trabajosas escaleras. El asesino amaba la relojería de las estrellas, su parecido con las frutillas, su plan sideral y su propensión al festejo. También amaba los movimientos sísmicos. El asesino no se consideraba un héroe, pensaba que en su trabajo era otro como cualquiera. El asesino aspiraba a construir tantos prados y abejas y flores como le fuera posible, y quería escupir tantos sueños dichosos como pudiera para ayudar a la gente a vivir feliz. El asesino no reconocía antecedentes familiares. Su padre era fabricante de tejas, su madre una bruja, la primera en usar minifalda en Madagascar. El asesino tenía manos de pianistas, aromáticas y coloradas como las frutas líneas, frescas, blancas y tímidas, como las manos benditas de la lluvia de verano. El asesino miró el reloj, eran las 11. En media hora vaciló la botella de whisky, miró el reloj, eran las 10:30. El asesino, cuando bajaba del árbol, se disfrazaba. El asesino estaba movido por criterios básicamente éticos. No sabía cómo matar el tiempo, por ejemplo. El asesino estaba libre de culpas, un camino verdaderamente solitario. El asesino tenía poco de empleado público y mucho de astronauta. Ostentaba con visible fatuidad una cadena de margaritas de 100 a 100. Su amenaza de espía de las fotos de las urgentes mariposas trepando por su sangre como cada mañana. El asesino no existía y algunos ilusos hasta creían que bailaba. El asesino contemplaba con orgullo la sublime paz sembrada por sus balas. El asesino era como un soldado patinando en las amarillas solapas del whisky. El asesino era como un ciudadano que pagaba impuestos, vestía sonrisa, loción y manto de martirio. Sabía que cada nube que pasaba interrogaba el sol, sabía que todo neumático debe besar la carretera. El asesino se fue sin ser descubierto, se llevó las flores ninjas del prado, arrastrando los juguetes del ático en el bajo de sus jeans.
Next, I have a pleasure of presenting Samantha Schwartz, who is a Mexican-American artist, poet, and language enthusiast. When Samantha is not painting at her home in New York City or studying at Bard, she spends her time working with organizations that support immigrant families and border justice.
Bonjour à tous. Hola a todos. Voy a leer una poema en inglés. The border wall section through the Tohono O'odham Nation. Each morning, I watch as the moon is pulled away from me, and I wonder if we look alike. I watch night surrender to dawn in that first band of light as it traces the horizon. This past week, I've heard and learned to ignore the approaching murmur of an engine. As the dark sky is bleached by day's pale blues and dry clouds, I feel the gravity of my weight push against the ground, a heaviness holding all of my certainty about the past, about where I am, and about the daily cycle from moon to sun which I have observed for centuries. While many consider me lazy, unmoving, or lifeless, my sedimentary body has shifted and metamorphosed throughout the deep time of an undisturbed geological process. My transformation occurs at the whims of the sun and the earth, during a length of time only comprehensible to mountains and sand. Today, just as yesterday, my surface, which centuries have wrinkled like the sea, consumes the warmth and reflects the light which day feeds me. Retired to this rested landscape, I capture a history in my grains and strata, punctuated by earth's groans and unmarked by the people who named them. I have witnessed peace, war, burial, pilgrimage, and their repetitions. This morning I have visitors. They bring sharp noises and words like construction, contractor, control, and cuidado cabrón. While I do not understand them, I hear that the voices sound at times serious, but primarily undisturbed. The sun continued to beat down, and I waited for the moon and her craters to come back to me. The moon left my mind when a sound, like thunder, rippled into the air, and a magnificent blast, unwhipped of justice, tore through the millennia of my solidity, my exploded cry releasing all of my ancient minerals and wakas and truths into the now polluted air.
So next on the list, we have Rose Reyes. Born in New York, now based in Paris, Rose is a writer of poems and stories, as well as one of 3 hosts of spoken word. Her memoir, Somewhere in Between, also the name of her online blog on WordPress, won the 2006 Edward Riviera Autobiography Award. Her poems and short stories have been published by Promethean Literary Magazine, The City at the Center magazines, Poetry in Motion in conjunction with the New York City MTA, amongst others. Paris publications include the Bioptic Review and Paris Lit Up magazines. Finalizing an upcoming collection of her poems and stories, Rose has been a proud performing member of the spoken word communities in Paris, in addition to being a host at Spoken Word Paris. She enjoys performing stand-up comedy and improvisation, performing regularly on English-speaking comedy shows in Paris and Berlin. She revels in telling countless childhood stories about her beloved father in his indelible Dominican accent. Well,
the first poem is called Island. It's the island where my parents came from, the island of my childhood too. Each summer, we'd migrate south to the warmth of the island where my family came from, escaping sheets of rain that pricked our innocent, upturned faces because we thought like snowflakes that gently land on your tongue, stained from eating Red Hots. We should open our mouths and stick out tongues like receiving Holy Communion from the sky. In the South, we'd eat fresh mangoes and papayas, drink lemonade made with limes, not lemons, and added sugar cane because life was not sweet enough. And we'd run around cherry and orange trees while screaming, no me rinderé, tú verás, te quemarás. Except that we'd had to give up the moment we'd realized that we'd return to our north, where the cold bites our cheeks and at the end of winter spits us out. My second one for this theme is in French, actually. It's called L'Oubli. It's dedicated to my father, whose birthday is this Sunday. Comme pour me rappeler l'endroit où t'as pris ton dernier souffle. Chaque après-midi, un vent froid de nord souffle dans la vallée. Quand j'étais petit, tu m'avais appelé avec un sifflet particulier. Toutes tes filles ont eu un son sifflet particulier, comme des petits canards. Ils s'envoleront pour le nord de ces printemps. Moi, je resterai ici. J'ai besoin de soleil, même si ma peau brûle au-dessus de cette chaleur. Parce que j'ai appris que mon âme habite à l'extrémité sud de la rue, perdue sur le marais. Prends vers le sud dans cette rue et tu me trouveras en train d'oublier le passé. Prends vers le sud dans cette rue et tu me trouveras en train d'oublier les passés. On s'est dit dans le sud que les gens sont beaucoup plus amis qu'eux. On s'est dit dans le sud que je pourrais t'oublier.
Caroline Bordas, elle va lire en français. Donc, je ne sais pas si vous pouvez m'entendre, mais Caroline Bordas est une metteuse en scène et écrivaine qui est co-auteuse au Bouffon Théâtre avec moi. Elle a fait des études de lettres modernes à la Sorbonne et met en scène ses textes en considérant le mouvement comme écriture de sa propre histoire.
For beginning, I will read a haiku. Dans le cul, les doigts tendus, la terre à l'envers, l'heure de recommencer. Then I will read a poem about the moon and the femininity of the moon. Lune ronde autour de mon corps fatigué de saigner. Lune rousse par-delà l'horizon de mes pensées. Lune obscure, tempérée de mes émotions gâchées. Lune creuse et tapie au toucher de ce mot à moitié. Lune écarlate face à ma peur recroquevillée du fossé. Lune étouffée par la terre qu'on envie par quartier. Lune irradieuse sur les sols retournés et frais. Lune vibrante dans ce tapis sombre qu'est l'été. Lune droite, dressée devant ceux qui t'ont désiré. Loin, loin tu es. Lune qui pense l'autre. And I will read a third one. It was an improvisation with Lucienne. Extatique, euphorique, lunatique. Tête de bique, prends ta brique, dame de pique. Y a un hic, oui, je pique. Je te flique, je mastique, on s'imbrique. J'ai la trique mécanique, hystérique. Tout ce fric me panique. Énergique, léthargique, symphonique, grosse bourrique, scientifique, vieille relique, arsenic, électrique, romantique, domestique, chaotique, frénétique, poétique, hérétique, pronostic, artistique, narcotique, étatique, héroïque, autistique, ta logique, catholique, république, je la nique!
Sharmishta Samal is currently based in Paris. She is originally from Delhi and of Bengali and Oriya origin. She is pursuing her studies in classical lyrical singing and theater professionally at the Conservatory of Rueil-Malmaison. Passionate equally about words and free-form poetry, she started writing at a young age, inspired by her grandfather's remarkable sense of words and literature. She finally began performing spoken word in Delhi in 2016, where she also started professionally training and performing with the Classical Music Foundation Nemrana, while finishing her bachelor degree in philosophy from the University of Delhi. She has been part of their various opera productions.
The poem's called Your Breath Is. Whiffs of blue, your breath is. Heavy exhale on my neck. Windy inhale my skin away from my nibbling nails. My old apartment was. Fluctuating lights from the Tour Montparnasse. Fluctuating sleep, no arms to wrap. Fears that clap me awake in the night. I talk to them, a year passes. By the front door of Rue Bernard Buffet. Park watching, sky watching, grammar breaking, bar visiting, friends searching, lonely reality, good looking, sleep snatching, breast shrinking with each heartbreak, 22 and by myself. My loneliness was a self-sabotaging, vicious circle of internal voices, no arms to wrap, voices that trap me awake in fear. I talk to them, a year passes. By the back door where transient friends constantly leave towns. Heartbreaking, floor sobbing, quinoa eating, the strawberries in my oats grew in number with each teeth grinding confusion infused around me. A strange place we call Earth. Around you, warmth. My birth was born and never felt like I was here, never felt like I belonged. 22 and by myself. Feeling like you don't belong, no big deal as long as you're capable of paying your rent, living in your dream city, following your dreams. Emotional distress, it does not matter. You're lucky enough to be doing what you like, to be doing what you like. Doing what I like, I wasn't doing what I like. Feeling like I belong is, joy is, passion is a sign that you're doing what you like. Self-sabotage isn't. Years of trauma begging for your attention and you turning a blind ear isn't. It is self-hate, subtler over the years. I know you still love the high you get from burning your lips from a very hot drink that disappears. Your breath is, my belongingness is, beginning to find me from the distances that cease to be, your love that begins to be, that which catalyzes all that is for me to hurry towards me. You hovered over this ravenous road I had been on. You have pinched my heart to glue itself together from all trauma ever since. Your breath is, belongingness I was asphyxiated by the lack of. I meet in your breath, whiffs of blue. My sleeplessness was, my trauma was, my self-sabotage was. Whiffs of brown earth, your breath is.
For each edition of the Bioptic Review, we have a double theme. The first edition, it was light and dark. The second edition was rage and peace. And this edition is north and south. So it's always with two opposite words or terms to try to kind of contemplate opposites together. Et je voulais vous demander si vous avez quelque chose à dire par rapport au thème de cette année du Nord et Sud.
Creo que se hace necesario que la poesía salga del Olimpo basurero. Creo que hay que llevar la poesía a la barricada, y esa barricada es, por favor, no puede ser que en tiempos de pandemia la ignorancia, la falta de conciencia social, la falta de solidaridad se sienta. La poesía no debe ser solamente un acto de escritura, debe ser un acto de acción. Si no lo hacemos, vamos a seguir siempre escuchándonos entre nosotros. Es el momento en que la poesía tiene que salir a la acción. Y por eso, muchas gracias, Lucian, de sacar esta antología, pero más allá de eso, es que debemos solidarizar entre los poetas y despertar, por favor, despertar. El arte cae, la cultura cae, y si seguimos en eso, vamos a terminar creyendo en cada complot, en cada conspiración de aquellos que viven en el mundo de lo no real. Gracias, Lucian, y gracias a todos los poetas. Nunca había tenido esta experiencia, es primera vez que hago algo así por Zoom. Y bueno, tuve paciencia. Muchas gracias.
Apoyo completamente, sí, lo de pasar a la acción y todo lo que dijo Mauricio. También tengo una pregunta and I have to ask something is how the thing about north-south born, no? Why north and south in this particular?
Well, I have to admit that there is a little bit of a personal element in that. I try to make the themes as general as possible, because what's interesting to me is not my own association, but the association between words and the association between words in different languages. So always starting with two opposites. You can call them binary pairs or just opposites, dualities. But it's true that for me, the reason was I was thinking about North and South because I was moving between Paris and Marseille this past year. But that's not what obviously the review is about. I guess I started thinking about this in very abstract terms, but I wanted to see what your associations were with these abstracts, these opposites of words, because the North and the South for different countries means something different. For example, maybe for the US, it might conjure up the ideas about the Civil War. For India, it might be something different. For France, maybe between Paris and Marseille. But that's geographically speaking, and then there is the association of words, which is much more interesting. For example, I did a writing workshop with Florian and Otto. We did a writing workshop about this theme, and we came up with many words that were associated with North and South in French. For example, of course, en français, le Nord et le Sud, c'est un peu le... Il y a plusieurs choses qui sont associées au Nord et Sud. C'est le froid et le chaud, c'est le haut et le bas, c'est aussi l'ordre et le désordre. Il y avait d'autres associations. Aussi, il y a l'aspect économique. On peut voir du monde. We can also think about the North and the South in terms of economics. Obviously, that's one interpretation, but there's the North and South economically speaking, which is what Otto wrote about in his poem. It's unfortunate that he's not here to read. Yes, I guess what I try to do with the double themes for each of the reviews is to keep it very open-ended with opposite terms so that people can contemplate for themselves the associations of these words. Mais c'est très différent en anglais. Les associations des mots sont très différentes en anglais qu'en français et qu'en espagnol. Donc, c'est aussi ça ce qui est intéressant, c'est de comparer ces différences d'association des mots entre les langues. Donc, c'est un peu ça. Voilà. Mais peut-être pour vous, c'était autre chose.
Yes, I understand. And I read this book from a Uruguayan painter, Joaquín Torres Garcia. He lived in the end of 19th century and he died in the 40s of 20th century. And he talked about the South and North, and that for South artists, South hemisphere, the South, we need to put the South on our North. And what does it mean? It's like we need to go to the South and try to find our own way to express our own language, because Europe and then the US, it's been always like the center of the artistical world, but there are art everywhere. And right now I see that.
I know Borges talked about that a lot. Who are you talking about now?
Torres Garcia.
Uh-huh.
You can search on Google Joaquín Torres Garcia. There are a lot of nice works of him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe the different centers of artistical inspirations start to grow everywhere. I mean, there are already centers everywhere. East and
Oui,
West.
c'est vrai. Mais ça c'est aussi vrai que en fait le nord et le sud, ça correspond aux vraies zones géographiques, mais c'est aussi de questionner cette sorte de ordre dans le monde. Donc,
if I can say, you know, my poem, Rio Escondido, I wrote that poem while I was on a war correspondent assignment, you know, in for the liberation of Nicaragua. And that represented a whole conflict between Washington and every country south of the U.S. border. So North-South was not just, I mean, it was about economic domination. It was about regime change on the part of the CIA. It was about factions in the Latin countries. Some were pro-Washington, some wanted to modernize more like the gringos, others didn't. And it's still going on today. You see, it's simply because, and then the culture, you talk about the culture. If you're in Los Angeles, if you're in Phoenix, if you're in San Antonio, or you're in Austin, you are living in North-South culture fusion, baby. I tell you what, you put themes put out, Southern themes or Latin themes put out by gringos, and American themes put out by Latinos. And this is a world that's merged on our side of the pond, you know, in the Americas. And it's very, very exciting. It's very interesting. It's also very, very painful. You know, we need not discuss the United States response to immigration, you know, the cages for children. And so I can think about how wonderful certain foods and souvenirs may grace my home, but I think more about children in cages. And every time a Latin American country begins to progress, modernize, speak for self-independence, Washington meddles in that situation, and usually has always won, except for Cuba. Which, so, you know, that's what it immediately means to me. And lastly, I perform in the Bronx, okay? I perform in neighborhoods up there, jazz poetry, dig. And the audiences are largely Dominican and Puerto Rican, and they're in New York. So they're speaking you know, Spanish and English together all the time, mixing the sentences. Again, it's a wonderful fusion between the cultures of Latin America, in this case, those two nationalities, and those of the United States. And I can get it on 164th Street and 6th Avenue in the Bronx. And that's a very, very nice thing for me to be able to do.
so even in the north, there is a part of the south in that sense.
Well, yeah, with migration, you know, one thing that America can't deny, no matter what else it tries to repress, is the influence of the immigrants on the culture, on the evolving culture. And I guess most of you know, in 20 or 30 years, the most oft-spoken language in North America may be Spanish.
Well, luckily, Spanish is one of the languages of the Bioptic here, yes. So. It's true, Spanish is an important language in the US. It all depends on your point of view in the end, really, because for us, what we see as South is from our perspective of the North.
One other thing I like to say too is, like, if we talk in South or North, East or West, in this review and in other webs or review, I really like the idea of global poetry. I like the idea to share in different languages with poets from different countries and try to share different realities. So if it's South or North, it doesn't matter anyway. The idea is to, you know, to try to share the information in different ways than ever before, no? the last century, because sometimes we all know what is going on in some cities in artistical and political issues, but we don't know anything about other countries. And sometimes it's really nice to point that out, to just share what is going on with humanity as all. So in that case, I think the Bioptic Review and a lot of other projects are nice in that sense.
Angora Poet, since its inception, since I launched it, I very openly advocated come and read in English or French or any other language, your first language or your second language. And we have some very well-tuned poets, that's to say sensitive. And so when someone reads in Chinese, Mandarin, or Hungarian, and we've had people read in Icelandic, we just simply ask them, please read passionately. And we're a family of poets, not just a big open mic. I mean, there's room for both, but we're more like a family. And our ears are sensitive. So that if I don't understand everything in your version of Spanish in Chile versus a version from Barcelona, you know, I can hear the melodia, I can hear the rhythm, the melody, and the passion. And with a brief explanation of what the poem is about, I begin to feel for what you're doing through your individual expression and through the value of your language. You know, we've heard languages that astounded us because we know so little or nothing, like in Hungarian, you know, and Mandarin Chinese, and we just sat there stunned listening to it because people were able to read proudly and passionately, and our ears were open.
That's so wonderful hearing you share that, Mo. And it's not just about tolerating difference, which I think here in the UK, that seems to be what people do. They tolerate our differences and they don't celebrate our cultures and celebrate our differences. It's all about assimilation into this society and fitting in. But I love how at the poetry reading you're celebrating that people are from different places, and it's not like, well, you can speak in that language only if you can translate, like, and yeah, that just really moved me. Does the poetry reading you attend have sessions online?
No, it doesn't. I purposely wanted to build a tight family, published, unpublished, young or old. But I'm not interested in a big open mic. There's plenty of good open mics. I'm interested in attracting people. We are a world cafe. We have poets from Africa, Bengal poets, Chinese poets. And we usually field somewhere around 12 poets per session on a Sunday evening. And that way we can do what we're doing now, Lucy, which thank you. We talk to one another. We gab about what happened last week in Ghana. Did you get, did you get your job in Helsinki? And we check in with one another, which also makes us begin in a distance, somewhat, solidarity. We start getting affectionate toward one another about their artistic merit and the humanity behind them as individuals. So that's what we're trying to do, and again, not interested in a big flock of open mic because they're very good open mics, plenty of them. We're filling a different kind of niche.
I wanted to add that what Globus does and the vision behind Globus YouTube channel, in addition to just having a wonderful book collection at the store, is the connection, is building the bridge. And it could be north to south. It surely could be east to west, vertically and horizontally, and in all directions possible, and something in between. I personally am more interested in something in between, because everything divided simply into loses the complexity and richness. So it is fantastic to have this group of poets with geographically, it's just such a bouquet. I was just enjoying reading the bios. They are like poetry, connecting, from Chile to Hong Kong to Peru to Paris to whatnot. I think we only missed Australia, right? We had Morocco from Africa. It's all over the place, and that brings this there's many fibers to this text, to this magazine. That's why I decided to run this reading, because we tend to mainly host shows representing voices from Eastern Europe, and that we do in full range. We have Lithuanian, Belarusian, Ukrainian voices that are usually marginalized by the major Russophone literature, but we are expanding and going into all these unexplored areas. But my personal vision is not limiting it to one part of the world and not one direction, or not even like by direction, but just to open it up completely. And by hosting this reading and all of you, we added to this what was called when I was little rootless cosmopolitanism, which was meant as an insult, but to me it's the best praise. I feel very rootless in a very productive, positive way. And some of you might be feeling more rooted, and that's good too. But globus stands for globe. Globus is the word for globe in Russian. So it's the whole globe in all of its direction. And that's what it meant to me.
Well,
yes, thank you for having this, for hosting this event, Zarina. It's been wonderful, and I also like this idea of on the one hand honoring these differences, but not being circumscribed by these differences, in the sense that we're also connected to people throughout the world. And I think that's actually very important, to not only be insulated in our own communities. So I think that's what's really great about even the internet today. We can connect with so many people. Also, I feel lucky to be able to know so many talented writers here in Paris. So thank you all for this event, and for your poetry, because you inspire me a lot, actually, and I'm very humbled, because I think I have a lot to learn as a poet, and I think everyone shows me something different.
For those who are interested in this work, please buy the Bioptic Review, and you can read the work. You can see the art, and it's a wonderful magazine, as you could see, the rich range of performers. And thank you, Lucy, for putting it together.
Thank you to everyone who makes it what it is. So thank you all for reading, for contributing your poetry, and for the exchange that we're able to have like this.
Do help our little bookstore. You can help very easily by just subscribing or liking YouTube channel, so I can hold these readings in the future. We need more traffic. That's easy. And come visit, stay well.